Earlier this week, San Diegans celebrated Veterans Day by taking time to remember the men and women who served in the armed forces. We caught up with several veterans on the USS Midway Museum who shared with us what this holiday means to them.
Hi, my name's Ed Jones. I'm a retired Air Force pilot, lieutenant colonel. Presently, I'm a docent here on the Midway. Veterans Day nowadays, I think, is giving credit to the veterans that we didn't have a long time ago. When I came back from Korea in 1952, they didn't think too much of the serviceman, and the same in 1967 when I came back, only I think the family was happy to see me come home. But I think Veterans Day now is making people aware that the people that are serving their country, whatever goes wrong, it's not their fault.
My name is Vic Vedra, Safety Manager on the Midway. I'm a retired Navy Chief Petty Officer. Veterans Day is very important to me because it celebrates the sacrifices of all the service members that have been in every branch of the service from way back when to up to now. And we need to do that just to keep everybody's mind out that they're doing something for our protection and for our country.
My name is Vic Zambrano, retired Command Master Chief. I did 28 years in the Navy. Veterans Day is important to me. It's the time to remember and recognize the many sacrifices of our brave men and women in the armed services, and to recognize also all the things they have done for this great nation. Not to mention also our family members who is behind our brave men and women in the United States Armed Services.
Okay, hi, my name is Captain Ted Shaw. I'm a retired naval officer. And I spent half of my active duty time as a helicopter pilot, and then continued after that in the reserves as a helicopter pilot. Veterans Day to me is very, very significant because back in the 60s and the early 70s, we kind of lost touch with what Veterans Day was all about, and I'm very, very happy to see that now it's resurfaced again, and particularly on the Midway, it's a very, very significant time in our year. Well, to me, it's that a remembrance of all the people all the way back to the First World War and the Second World War in Vietnam, and all the people that were lost and never really recognized. So I think that this is a recognition time, and I think it's a very, very significant time for us.
Yeah, I'm Captain Herb Zor. I spent 35 years in the Navy, and I remember Veterans Day as a day to recall my shipmates, past, present, and those that are no longer with us. It's particularly important to remember that on Veterans Day for all American citizens.
Joining me once again to talk about veterans issues are Dave Rowland, editor of San Diego City Beat, and Hugh Tronfon, specialist editor at the San Diego Union Tribune. Dave Rowland, your magazine recently looked at this issue, and yes, we might be paying more respect to our veterans when they return home, but are we getting them the services that they need? What did your magazine find?
Well, we found that we looked at a very, very small snapshot. We talked to a couple of guys that had their own issues. One was a man who helps run a support network for veterans who are having trouble navigating the VA system. What we found is that people in the system complain generally about the bureaucracy. Anytime you have a bureaucracy, there's going to be problems. But at least in one aspect of that, in your record keeping, it's apparently very, very antiquated system for record keeping. We're really still kind of focused on a piece of paper rather than an electronic system of keeping track of people and what benefits they are entitled to. So if you're a veteran who is homeless or otherwise down on your luck, things aren't going very well, you might be an alcoholic or something like that, you might have emotional problems based on your combat experience. If you are homeless, you lose your things, you don't have that piece of paper, that DD 214 or whatever it is, you may not get the services that you are deserving.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is also the hallmark injury of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Is this just a difficult disorder to treat or even recognize?
I think it's, first of all, extremely difficult whether you're a civilian injured and have PTSD or you're a service member or veteran. One, it's hard to diagnose. Dave and I had a conversation earlier, which we talked about technicians and clinicians perhaps not getting the diagnosis right all of the time or as many times as they should. There's also the idea that it takes many months or years to treat and can be triggered again decades later after a combat incident. I try to be an optimist, and I would say that the VA, along with the Pentagon, when you're still in duty, active duty, has kind of moved in the right direction. They may have been able to move sooner, but at least right now they're throwing in a lot of money to try to do more screening, more treatment, more intervention to try to prevent suicides, to try to get professional help for people. And then there are a lot of organizations in the civilian world that have stepped up to try to help, whether it's the county that we talked about, whether it's psychiatric and psychological groups, whether it's nonprofit, small little charities that operate with less than $50,000 a year that are trying to offer free mentoring and outreach and counseling in group formats. So people are trying to say, instead of always complaining about the government, we should try to step up and offer things that the government isn't offering.
Even given all that, let's throw out some statistics. 18,000 veterans are enrolled at the VA Medical Center in La Jolla. 27% of them diagnosed with PTSD. This is an overwhelming problem, even given the effort. Are we equipped in this county to deal with this?
I don't think we're equipped as a country to deal with this, and we, as you know, we're a big part of the system here locally. So, I think the problem you have is in terms of not being prepared. Before, in the past, soldiers died sooner. They, the medicine, battlefield medicine has improved so much that so many people are surviving, but they're surviving with serious head trauma, brain injury that like Hugh says, is hard to really get a grasp on right at first. It may come back later. And how brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder interact. I mean, that's a specialized kind of medicine that you really need people that are equipped, and we're not equipped to handle that in the general population. I'm actually working on a story right now that doesn't have to do with veterans or the military, but just somebody who has multiple diagnoses and how hard it is to get adequate rehabilitative care for that person. So I think with the military, it's just magnified because you're sending these people into a situation where they're likely to come back with PTSD, likely to come back with some brain injury, some head trauma. And I think that 27% number is probably low because a lot of this stuff doesn't get reported.
Or do they even
Joanne,
seek help?
Nationally, independent surveys, as well as the Pentagon's own surveys, show about a third of returning veterans have PTSD, and even a higher number have what we call combat stress, which is a smaller version of mental stress that may not be clinically diagnosed. I think I want to take a quick step back and even say that mental health has never been treated the same as physical injuries in our society, whether we're talking about the military or the public in general. So I think we're trying to come to grasp now with this huge toll of the war, and we'll see whether the military and our government is fully committed to it, not just for 5 years or 10 years, but decades later as these men and women age.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave Rowland and Hugh Tronfon.
Thank you.